going to do some introduction here. Alan Megargle is a filmmaker, event organizer, and a paranormal investigator in Bigfoot research. He produced the film Minerva Monster, directed the film The Back 80s, a modern-day Bigfoot encounter, Ghost in Ghost Town, Haunting the Wild West, The Bigfoot Alien Connection Revealed, Alien Contact in the Rockies. Alan currently produces and co-stars in paranormal adventure series Trails to the Unknown on Amazon Prime. He began conducting Bigfoot investigations with the Bigfoot Field Research Organization, BFRO, in his home state of Ohio over a decade ago. Along with his friends, Alan runs a yearly Bigfoot campout called Bigfoot Adventure Weekends, where he teaches attendees how to conduct their own investigations and takes them out to search for the elusive Sasquatch. I'd like to introduce Alan Megargle.
Ooh, dark in here. Hi. Thanks for coming to my talk. Probably have no idea who I am, so I appreciate you being here. That's awesome. So I'm going to talk about the evolution of Bigfoot research, moving things forward. This is a combination of about 14 years of my research, I guess you'd call it that, my Bigfoot tinkering in the woods, and kind of where I am now and how I've evolved to this point, and sort of my attempt to help people understand a little bit more like I feel like I have. So let's get into this a little bit. So this is a companion piece to the Spiritual Bigfoot movie. Were any of you at the theater last night? Perfect. So I made a movie about a lot of this. This kind of goes along with it. This is sort of a little more in-depth look at some of the things that are featured in the film. So if you haven't seen Spiritual Bigfoot, it's on Amazon Prime, it's on YouTube now on our National Paranormal Network, and it's coming to a few other places too, like Tubi and things like that. So you'll be able to see it online. So a couple things about this presentation I wanted to get out of the way before I even start. So this presentation is not, this is what it isn't. Because I'm going to talk about some different things that contradict some other Bigfoot people. So this is not a diss on any other investigators. I'm not trying to suggest that any approach is wrong. This is just the approach I'm taking currently. I have a lot of respect for everyone that does this. I mean, if you go out and look for Bigfoot, that's awesome. That takes a little bit more braveness than the normal person. I think we should all work together, and I really believe that, and everything that I do is collaborative. And we work with everyone that we come across. I shoot for a no enemy policy, but we'll see. And then no one's right or wrong, especially at this point. We don't know enough, I think, to really make a conclusive decision on what's happening. So what my presentation is my current thoughts on what Bigfoot is, and I will talk to you about that. How to continue the pursuit for answers. So just sort of my ideas and thoughts about where we go from here. It's all based on my personal experiences, and then, like I said, very collaborative, so I have a lot of information gathered from other people that helped me get to this conclusion. So just a little bit about me, you've already kind of heard. I began about 2009, really taking a serious look at Bigfoot. You know, I went from watching all the TV shows and movies and really having an interest in it to really getting into the field work and trying to figure out, get some answers, things like that. I was trained by the Bigfoot Field Research Organization in Ohio. We got to work with all the top guys there. They showed me how to do all the protocol techniques, and we ran lots of events and stuff together for many, many years, a good decade. So it really helped me understand how most people go about this, and that was what I did. I was chasing the big great ape out there in the woods. So doing a lot of documentary filmmaking, and these are all the places in red that I've been, either for paranormal or looking for Bigfoot. So this is something I've been doing a long time, and I've got a lot of places checked off. If your state's not on there, then you know, maybe let me know. We'll head out that way. There seems to be something everywhere. So I want to take you back a little bit just to kind of set the groundwork from Bigfoot history. This is kind of sort of where modern day Bigfoot sort of took hold. This is Jerry Crew. He was the first known person to really cast Bigfoot prints. He had these large 18-inch by 7-inch tracks, and it was in Bluff Creek, California. So then from there, we kind of went into the Patterson-Gimlin film about 9 years later, also in Bluff Creek, California. Most of you have probably seen this, the famous footage of Patty over here. This is sort of the first known real video of Bigfoot. Then we kind of got into some more the Bigfoot personalities here. Renee DeHinden was sort of the first one to really kind of pioneer the modern day Bigfoot investigator, researcher. He collaborated with Don Hunter to write this book, Sasquatch, which became very popular and set the tone for things. This was in 1973. He spent most of his life just searching for Bigfoot, and he went to really great lengths to try to find proof all over different parts of North America and other places. Kind of the pioneer in Bigfoot research. And something also interesting to note is, you know, as we sit today, he passed away and never really got the answers. Then John Green came along in 1978. He published the Apes Among Us. This was sort of considered sort of the Bible of Bigfoot. If you haven't checked this book out, it's one to have in your collection. It's just top to bottom, excellent read on what Bigfoot is, especially from the view of 1978. He was a journalist, and he really knew how to put things into words that people could be entertained and really get some information out of it. So 65 laters after Jerry Crew, what we don't have yet, we don't have any bones. All these are debatable, by the way. We don't have any conclusive DNA. Some studies are being talked about now. We don't have a body. We don't have any proof. So this is kind of the things that stuck in my mind. Why so long? Why so many people? Why nothing? Again, very debatable. So what we do have, we've got blurry photos. You know, I think there's a Sasquatch in there, they say. I don't know. We get a lot of hoaxes. That's a big thing, especially with YouTube and all these things. Everybody wants to go out and have their own Bigfoot video. We get a lot of indistinguishable video where, you know, you just can't tell. It's blurry. It could be somebody in a suit. Who knows? We got lots of footprints cast, and we have lots of people and lots of stories. Those last two I don't necessarily dismiss, but this is kind of where we are with the state of things. So this is where it gets into my opinion, explanation, a little you know, footnote on this. I don't believe it's an ape. I think we would have had some of these other things by now if we really had a species of ape running around in the woods. So my experience have compounded over the years, like I said, since 2009, and that's sort of what kind of led me down this path. I've had experiences where it couldn't be an ape. You know, it was there one minute and it was not the next, and I didn't see it leave. So where'd it go? Something's not adding up. So I feel like the ape theory is a lot less likely now. I guess I'm not willing to go out on a limb and say it's completely out of the possibility, but I don't think that's the right direction. So what it is, and I have a big question mark on that, and I have no idea. I don't know. But could it be an alien? Could it be interdimensional? These are the kind of things that I think, you know, we should consider when we're looking at the subject of Bigfoot. So the one thing that I did realize through a lot of documentary filmmaking, being out on the West Coast and kind of working my way through Colorado and some of the western towns there, I realized I needed to shift my approach. Doing the normal things wasn't working for me anymore. I had enough footprint casts and hair samples, and by the way, if you want to get a hair sample DNA tested, it's about $6,000. So I haven't done that yet. I have hair, but I don't know what to do with it. So you know, it was time to do something different. I feel like in the human to Bigfoot relationship, we are the primitives. I really feel through a lot of my experiences that Bigfoot's more of an advanced life form. There's things that they can do that we can't do. They hang around in the woods a lot. I'm not sure why they prefer that, but it definitely seems to be that case. A lot of times these interactions that we have with Bigfoot, such as like they throw rocks or they whoop at you in the woods or they do these wood knockings and different things you've heard about, I think those are not simplified for them, but for us. I don't think, you know, if we walked into the woods and Bigfoot started talking to us, that a lot of people would be able to handle that. So this is their way of kind of getting us into and bringing us into the conversation a little bit more. So, you know, based on witnesses and things that I've seen, what could Bigfoot do? It's possible. They might be capable of creating portals or using portals to get from place to place. Maybe that's how you see them and then they're gone. Or sometimes you see balls of energy or orbs or things like that. Maybe it's related to that. We've heard cases of mind speak where Bigfoot will tell you what to do. A lot of people have reported that. I don't know. That's something else to consider. We've heard of shape shifting too, where you see a dark creature go behind a tree and then a fox runs out and you're like, what happened? Where did Bigfoot go? Things like that. And then cloaking is the other thing, where people say they see sort of an outline of something shimmering in the woods, but they can never really make it, you know, in focus that they can tell what it is. And all these things combined maybe are why we don't have pictures and bones and all those things. So there is a Native American connection. Probably a lot of you are familiar with that already. But there's, you know, lots of rock art from hundreds, if not thousands of years, where you have these big feet, tall figures depicted. Could this be an indication that the Native American culture was interacting with these beings in some way? Recently, we were in Nebraska at the Nebraska Bigfoot Conference, and we'd just done our talk, and a guy came over and introduced himself, and his name was James White. And he's a Dakota medicine man from the reservation in northern Nebraska. And he said he does these healing ceremonies called the Uipi, where they bound him and they cover his head, and then they do prayers and songs and different things like that in sort of a ritual. And in these intense meditation sessions, he is able to make direct contact with Bigfoot. He's even said that they will come into the tent, he can hear them walking in, and they can interact in some ways. And they call it the Chitanka, or the big elder brother. And in his culture, they refer to it as a relative, which I thought was really, really kind of mind-blowing in some ways, to think that this creature could be a relative. But the other thing that was interesting is, let me think now, that he said that they're able to call these in with these ceremonies, especially when people are like really sick or dying people, and they come in and they're able to sort of have a healing effect or calming effect with the tribe. So these things are, these Bigfoot Chitankas are very important to them. So this is Suzanne from the movie The Back 80. It was one of my first documentary films. It's a whole film about her experiences. She saw Bigfoot cross the road in front of her, and then it showed up at her house, and her life just sort of went down this spiral because she didn't understand, you know, when you see a giant monster in the woods, you're not how do you process that. So during this whole filming, she had a lot of realizations, and she was therapeutic for her. And at some point on the last day of filming, actually, she said, you know, it's real, and now what is it? And that always stuck in my head. I knew what she said, but I knew what she meant too. Like, I've seen it, I know it's here. I don't need to sit here and try to get pictures and audio and all these things to prove to you that's real. It's just where we go from here. Now that we know it's here, what do we do? So obviously the evidence that we see points to the existence of something. Something's going on. There's so many witnesses. You know, now they make conferences all about it. You know, this can't all just be for fun. There has to be something to this. So the whole idea is let's move beyond that proof. So it's there. What is it? Why is it here? What does it want with us? So understanding that, we need to look at sort of the people involved. So I believe that the witness, even though it's very unreliable, is the key to figuring this out. Because if there's no one there to see Bigfoot, then there's no Bigfoot. Yeah, so it's very important to understand how are we interpreting this. So one of the things is that every one of you, if a Bigfoot dropped down right here, right now, you'd all go home and tell your family, and you'd all have a different story. You know, it'd be really interesting to see how that differed. So this is Ray Hernandez. He does a lot of consciousness books and things like that. He's a lecturer, and we met him in Vernal, Utah last year. And he told us an interesting story that kind of backs up this idea that each individual will interpret something different, or at least the possibilities there. So one day him and his wife were driving home, and they saw this giant ball of light, this energy ball hovering in the sky. And Ray swears up and down that it was a structured craft, a UFO from outer space. His wife, who was sitting right next to him, says, "Oh, no, it was an angel. I saw the wings and the face, and they came from heaven." So two people, same event, very different interpretations. So why is that? So we'll get into that. But the first sort of key thing that I've learned to understand this is kind of removing your expectations and eliminating fear. So when I'm going out and doing these things, if I expect to find a big monster and then I see a big monster, I'm going to freak out. But if I expect to find a gentle forest giant who wants to meet me, it's going to be a whole different experience. So what I found is the key is to not have either one of those expectations. Just let Bigfoot be what it is. It doesn't have to be what you want it to be. So again, I don't believe it's a monster. I don't think a lot of these television shows and podcasts and these things that dive into that are doing it any justice and helping anything. The other thing is, as we experience and go out and do these things, I'm speaking for myself and others, as you have these strange experiences, it seems like you're able to open up yourself to have more strange experiences. So for instance, when I first started doing this, my first night ops that we went out after dark looking for Bigfoot was about 10 to 15 minutes because it was so intense that we weren't used to that we couldn't wait to get back to the tent. And then we got back to the tent and we were like, actually let's sleep in the car, because even that was still too intense. But eventually you start to get used to it, and that's really what it becomes, a comfort level. And then as we were doing this, nothing would happen. We would see all these people. Every time we go here, something happens, and everywhere we go, nothing ever happens. And then eventually we started to get things here and there. And a decade later, I can go jump on a plane, drop myself in Sedona, Arizona, and have Bigfoot sighting. It seems that I have ability to make things happen now. So again, why is that? And how important is the person in all of this? So this is one I got from my father-in-law, Ron, back there. The Superman effect, and hopefully I get this right. But the idea is that as we begin to progress down this road of Bigfoot, and we allow ourselves to accept the fact that we just saw a UFO and a Bigfoot in the same night, or something like that, and we had some sort of encounter that doesn't fit what it's supposed to. The more we allow ourselves to kind of accept that, does that open us up for sort of rejection from society? Is our society ready for that? And the answer, has been historically no. So this is sort of how we develop our little superpower of being able to have these experiences, but we really can't talk about it or share it or express this to other people. So we sort of become the Clark Kent in disguise, where we know things that we can't really share publicly because the world isn't ready to accept, in this case, Superman, but also the fact that you could go into the woods and have an encounter with a Bigfoot and come home and have dinner and be just fine. Things like science and religion, they reject this concept of Superman as well. It's not possible. We've been told our lives you can't do this. But it goes the other way as well. I mean, if society does accept Bigfoot and they want it to be an ape, then how can it cloak and do all these other things? It almost has to be in disguise as a monkey, just so that we can accept that and be okay with it. But the fact of the matter is that we can all have these superpowers. Hollywood shows us that superpowers are for special people, but that's not true. You don't have to be bitten by a Bigfoot to see a Bigfoot. We all have that ability. We can initiate our own contact experiences. So how do we do that? So the first thing is sort of self-awareness, we call it. When you're doing this kind of thing and you're out in the woods, just being present in the moment, sort of forget about all the other stuff going on and just just be there. Hearing nature, you want to feel the earth beneath your feet. You really want to connect and be present with the environment that you're in. This next part's really hard, the removing biases and filters. Again, just letting Bigfoot be Bigfoot. You don't necessarily have to have an expectation when you go out there. Maybe you just have a nice walk, or maybe you have a real big encounter. Anything can happen. This is the other thing. This actually came from the Dakota medicine man. He said, all these things, government, media, religion, culture, have all kind of put a cap on us. We've learned things through our lives to a certain point, and then that's all we know. We don't know what's beyond that. But we have the ability to remove that cap and just let things happen. Just learn from your experiences. You don't have to try to interpret everything. So basically what happens, we're going to really get into things here, is your brain kind of interprets these things and has a map of the world. This is the world that you know. Everyone's map's going to be a little bit different. The world that your brain creates is the only world you know. I mean, you don't have experiences, then you don't know. But the good thing about this is it's constantly evolving. So every day that map gets a little bigger, a little bit different. So what happens when you have what I call this anomalous events? You see a UFO, you have a Bigfoot sighting, a ghost comes up and slaps you in the face and goes back in through the wall, whatever it is. They don't fit into that map. You don't know how to process that. So a lot of times what happens is your brain gets really confused and it tries to fit it in somewhere. So you're in the woods, there's a big black furry thing, it's a bear. Because that's all your brain knows. So a lot of times this interpretation is not reality. But as these things start to happen more and more and more, if you're open to that and you let yourself, your brain realizes, hey, we need to look at this differently. We can't just say that was an airplane, even though it really didn't look like an airplane. It didn't behave like an airplane. So now you can start to accept some things a little bit more. And when you do that, there's this sort of deeper reality, and most people don't perceive this deeper reality. It's the thing we're all looking for in some way or another. What happens after we die? What's going on with Bigfoot? What's going on with paranormal? All those different things. There is something to it. So one way that I've found that can help you sort of remove some of these barriers is, in my case, I've had the opportunity to work with some mediums that can do some channeling and meditation. You don't necessarily need that, but they can help they just basically turn your filter off for a little while, temporarily, enough for you to have some sort of experience. It lets go of that sort of map that you already have. Let's just forget about the map and just be whatever it be. Some of these people, like the mediums themselves, they can make that switch a little more permanent. And then those people can be good at teaching and guiding and helping, and they even sometimes have abilities for healing, either emotionally or sometimes physically. So there is a deeper reality that most of us don't understand or don't even accept that there is. So the other thing that we really gravitated to, which is sort of the opposite of the last slide, is technology. So the cool thing about technology is it kind of gives you another data point. You put that with your personal experiences, and now you have a good model in your head to try to understand all that. And the thing that makes technology so good is it's hard to really be fooled. If I measure electromagnetic field here and there's nothing, and then I try to make connection with some spirit that's here, and now I measure an electromagnetic field and there's something there, I can say, okay, is this related? There's another data point for you to consider. And this goes beyond just something like that. So here's a whole slew of tools, and what we started doing now is using everything I have. I take it with me, whether I'm going to an old haunted building or if I'm going out to the woods. And we use it all. Tri-field meters in the woods. We see an orb and we get a spike of magnetic field, we have more data. The other issue with science is it has some limitations, especially when you're talking base science, government, educational institutions. You know, the money oftentimes kind of guides where the research goes. Sometimes it's misguided for whatever reason, political reasons or things like that. But a lot of times it's also limited in scope. During some funded research, they might open the door to something else, but that's not what the funding's for, so they just kind of move past that and go into other things. The other thing that's a big sort of roadblock in all this is the peer influence, institutional rules and things like that. If Bigfoot is laughed at by academia, then there's not going to be a lot of academia to go look for Bigfoot. So a lot of different things come into play. One thing going in the right direction, though, is the government's sort of recognizing the UAPs. Now they're releasing footage of UFOs and things like that, and they're telling us we don't know what it is. Could it be a distraction, something bigger? It's possible. But in any way you look at it, it's a step forward, because there's a good possibility that they will start providing funding for some of this, and you will be able to see research papers and things done on that. And maybe, if we're wishful thinking and down the road, maybe that opens the door for Bigfoot as well. We'll have to see. That's probably a ways away. So moving forward. So our newer interpretation of Bigfoot, at least for myself, it could be allowing us to advance and maybe even understand more about other parts of this world we live in. As I have more experiences and go to more places, my brain map gets bigger and allows me to take in more. Having these experiences doesn't make you special. We can all have these experiences. I don't feel like I've achieved anything. You know, I'm just open to the fact that this is something different, and I want to treat it that way. It's almost something special. Most of the interactions that I have, I do feel like were personal and special moments. They were all very positive things that have happened to me. So I think ultimately, I want to push forward into more of this interaction and contact versus the proof and evidence gathering. So for me, developing relationships and trust with these beings is the key to unlocking the what and why. And eventually, my hope is we can all evolve and connect. And for me, it's become more about just like caring for others, less about the self-absorptions and ego, and less about me and more about sharing things and teaching other people. Basically, I feel like we're all part of the same, as I call it, oneness, or the same universe. We're all here together experiencing things in different ways, but it's still the same thing. Anybody have comments on these? I've left them speechless.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
Alan, when you're out and you're trying to connect with Sasquatch, how do you know if a connection has happened? What would you expect to happen that would tell you that you're connecting?
Well, you know, that's again, it manifests itself in unexpected ways. So a contact with a Bigfoot could be anything from they start making noises. I've had them start throwing things, rocks, little things. Never felt in danger or anything, but little things. There's also been times where you can just hear them sort of getting closer, closing in around you. I know you've experienced things like orbs and eye shine and other little, what would you say, signs that something is happening. But then as you start to progress and become more open and understand that you're safe, I've had them come up within 6 feet behind me. I had my eyes closed. I was sort of doing a mind clearing meditation type thing, and I could feel this powerful energy just in the center of my chest. And it stopped right behind me, and then I felt this energy kind of start to swirl around, very, very warm. I've described it in the past as sort of like a hug from the inside. It just felt overwhelmingly positive. And then it sort of stopped. It just sort of faded. And when I opened my eyes, we were in the dark forest in the middle of the night, but I could see everything. It wasn't like it was bright, but it was glowing. I could see every tree, every little leaf. It was so crystal clear. And then as I just kind of stared there, it got darker again. And when I turned around and looked, there was nothing there. So whatever walked in on 2 feet behind me was just gone. But I knew because I heard it and I felt it. Like I had a connection in a way that I describe in my film as like we met each other. We had a transfer of energy, and I feel that connection even now. Like it's stayed with me.
Okay, if there's no more questions, then I guess we'll conclude this. I want to thank Alan for his appearance today, and thank you for being here, and enjoy yourself. Thanks, Alan.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Appreciate it.
Yeah.